Hey everybody, I'm Terry Prinz. I'm the lead developer on Bowmen, and today we just wanted to start showcasing a little bit of the development process. I apologize, it's been a while since the teaser video. That was back in October. Life goes on, working a lot, you know, the whole shebang, I don't need to tell you. But I wanted to showcase some of the stuff that we made recently, as well as talk about some of the development process. Okay, let's just zoom out. So the first one I'm going to show you is called the Sword of Justice. This one's a really cool item. I actually really like how it came out. So it was inspired by Ragnarok, the skill from Golden Sun, if you've ever played it, where basically you activate the skill, he slices the sword down, and then a huge heavenly sword comes down and strikes the earth and deals damage. So I wanted to do something similar to that, and I also made it kind of like, heavenly based, like there's a glow that comes from the sky, as if God himself was aiding you in battle by throwing the sword down to the earth. So that's the premise. So I'm just going to show you it first. So let's go ahead and hit play. Alright, let me kill this guy. Oh, I really need to pay attention to wind. Should pay attention to my own game mechanics. Alright, so this is a sword. So you just activate it. It strikes all enemies within the vicinity of the sword dropping, dealing a massive amount of damage. So we're going to go ahead and equip it. And then let's activate it.
Burn at the sight of my wrath.
So that's the premise. Pretty cool, huh? Just to showcase a little bit of more of the specifics, I'm going to go ahead and move this game view over so we can get split screen. So you can kind of see essentially the game scene. So that's what's being shown here. And here's the sword. That's just what the equipable object is. And then the enemies, of course, are going to be spawning and moving down this way. Now, the sword that spawns itself is basically the same game object, but a massive version of it. And there's actually a spawn location up here in the sky that you'll see when I activate it again, where it's going to spawn this large object. And then there's a script that basically interpolates basically the movement between up here and then another game object down here. Empty game objects, just to indicate the places where it should start and stop. So the code for that, I actually have several different scripts that are all kind of doing different things for the Sword of Justice. The first of which is going to wait for a certain amount of time. So that's this IE numerator down here. Basically what it's going to do is right when the script starts, it's going to start this coroutine. So it's going to start this script, and then it's going to wait for a certain amount of seconds, and then it's going to get the camera, and then I have another script on the camera that's designed to shake it. And then it'll shake it, with a certain amount of movement and for a certain duration. Then it's going to wait a certain amount of time, and then it's going to destroy the sword. So that's the premise of that script. But there's a couple of others. There's the activation script, which basically checks which item you have equipped. If you currently have equipped the Sword of Justice, then it'll allow you to use the skill essentially. And then if you were to activate the sword with the A key and we weren't currently on cooldown, then it's going to generate the sword with the position and rotation of this game object. So I attach this script to where I want it to start, and then it's going to set essentially the cooldown and set a bool to state that it's currently active. For the damage, we then had to make a separate game object. Well, actually, this one's attached to the sword itself, but a separate script that's going to essentially deal damage to any enemy that's within a hitbox. So the sword itself has a hitbox, a sphere collider, and then that sphere collider, if anything is within it that has a tag for an enemy, then it's going to deal damage, and then it does that by calling a script on that object itself. The damage that it deals is what we specify. So I have a min and max damage here. That's just the range of values that we can deal damage to those enemies, and those range of values are down here. So it says damage is equal to random.range between these values, and then you're going to inflict that damage on any enemies that are... So that's kind of the basic premise. We have a script to move it, we have a script to shake the camera, we have a script to deal damage and to despawn it. There's a few others on the light effects, making the light come in and come out, and then also there's of course audio and stuff like that. But that's the basic premise. So if we were to play test this again, focusing on now the scene view on the left, you'll kind of see that. So here I'm going to equip the sword, I'll activate it. There's the sword, it spawns, and then it's going to shoot down and hit the earth, and then it's going to despawn. So there's two basically objects in between those two, and then of course it plays the explosion sound. So it actually came out really nice. The sword, I'm really happy with it. And then of course I had Mikey, one of my buddies, do a voiceover which dropped his voice a little bit lower and add some reverb to make it sound a little more heavenly and kind of authoritative and stuff like that. Alright, so the next one is that I had a lot of items that were essentially like the Sword of Justice. Come on. You want to click it so I can move it? That were essentially damage based. So it's going to deal a certain amount of damage and stuff like that. But we wanted, you know, stuff that's different. We don't just want a bunch of different items that are going to deal damage. We want items that are going to change attack speed or give you a certain type of damage. And I kind of wanted something that was minion based, one that could allow you to essentially spawn something to aid you in battle. So I created this Stonehammer, and it essentially allows you to do that. It'll summon a earth golem spirit that'll just like beat the crap out of the enemies that, you know, spawn. So it's a very basic golem. It just basically spawns and punches anything in its path, and I will show you that now. So here's the hammer. So we use it again with A, and it will have a certain cooldown, and what spawns will basically deal damage. So we spawn him, and there he is. And he just sits there. He'll probably have different spawn locations, and he just punches enemies as they come in. We also have a little icon in the corner that will allow you to basically just look up some basic stats about him. So this is kind of a placeholder. I'll probably include a little bit more information, such as how much damage he's going to do and when he's going to despawn. But right now he basically stays for 30 seconds and then he dies. And then we can summon him again, but we have to wait until the Stonehammer finishes cooling down. So you just can't, you know, essentially spawn him as much as you want. So if we were to look at that, I actually, for this one, I contained almost everything within a single script. So that's this one here. So I'll walk you through it a little bit. So we have to define a bunch of different objects, some textures for the icon and tooltip that was in that corner, min and max damage of the actual fist attack, time between those attacks, a despawn timer, how long until he despawns, a couple of audio for his death as well as his punch. These are private either variables or boolean or, you know, game objects for controlling the whole thing. I'll walk through those as we go through it. So at the start, we're going to say that he's not attacking, so this is basically a boolean value. He's not dead, he's alive, and then we have to get the animator for the animations, and then we also have to get the audio source because he's going to play a couple of audio files when he punches and also when he dies. So when he starts, we're going to start a coroutine. This is for the despawn. This will just wait a certain amount of time, which is that despawn timer that we specified, and then it'll say that he's dead, play the death audio, set the animation to die, and then it'll fade it out through another script that's attached to him, and then after it's done fading, it will destroy the game object. This spawn thing, this one here, just ignore that. I was trying to use it to get the fade in to work properly, but I'm still working on it. Okay, so this here, these on triggers, and on trigger enter and on trigger exit is just for when he does damage, when he starts doing damage, and then when he stops doing damage. So basically when an enemy walks into his hitbox, it'll call this on trigger enter. Basically has a sphere collider that's set as a trigger attached to his game object. If that enemy has a tag of being an enemy, ranged enemy, or boss, essentially all the enemy types that I have so far, then it's going to set this game object as its target. And then it's going to start a coroutine to deal damage to that target. So that's down here. And so basically it checks first to see if the golem's dead, because once it's doing the death animation, you don't want it to keep punching enemies. So if it's not dead, it will do its attack animation. It'll play audio for that animation. It will get a random damage value between your min and max values. Then it'll call this script, which is on my targets, my enemy game objects, to deal damage to them. Then it'll wait the time between we specified attacks, and then if the enemy is alive still within that hitbox, and we haven't set to stop attacking it, so this is called when the enemy leaves that hitbox, then we will attack it again. So it's just a simple way to kind of loop it. Yeah, so that's kind of the premise. And then down here, this on GUI is just showing the golem icon in the corner. And then if we hover over it with this little rectangle here, then we will show the tooltip, which I currently have set as a texture instead of a GUI interface. I just like the textures. They're just much easier to work with, but obviously there's certain cases where you can't do that. All right, so I'm going to kind of zoom in on the golem here after we spawn him. So I'm going to playtest, just show everything again. So there he spawns. He's going to wait for an enemy to kind of come in his path. If we were to look at him, that's his hitbox there. So as this enemy comes in, he gets punched, and then he's not going to get punched again as he leaves it. And then he deals damage over here. So it's basically a pretty cool just way to have just a simple minion added to your scene. And I'll probably add more. I was thinking about doing a necromancer one where you have a skeleton archer that basically spawns, and the skeleton archer, or like a skeleton knight that essentially has a certain amount of health and will actually take the blows of the enemies. The enemies will stop and attack the skeleton archer instead of you, and then you can, shoot at them from a distance. So there's a lot of progress that is being made essentially on the items. Have about 16 thus far. Going to add more, but that's kind of the basis of these two weapons. So I hope you liked this video. Just basically highlight some of the stuff that we've been doing. I know it's been a while since the teaser trailer. If you have any input, please feel free to add it to the comments below. If you're curious about how I did some of the other stuff with the scripts that I didn't talk about, also inquire about that. I'm not a professional. This isn't my day job, so there's not everything is as efficient as it could be, but it's been a fun endeavor to kind of learn some programming and then apply it to something novel such as game design. So I look forward to providing more for you soon. Probably do another one on balance of the weapons, particularly because as you make all these weapons, you don't want one weapon to be overpowered, right? You don't want it to be where the Sword of Justice, as soon as it spawns, someone's always going to take it. There's a lot of things you can tweak: how much damage it does, what the cooldown is, or in the case of the golem, the time between attacks, how many enemies it can hit, whether it hits everything in front of it or whether it has to target just one at a time. There's so many things that you can tweak, and balancing it becomes a bit of a challenge between all of the different item types that you have, because you might make one overpowered, and so then everybody's always going to choose that one. But really the goal of the items is to just keep gameplay refreshing and give people options of different things that they can pick up and use, that just kind of diversifies gameplay. So I'll probably do a separate one on balance, but for now This is kind of just showcasing a few of the item types as we're designing them. But we'll dive into balance once we have a lot more completed. So thanks again for watching. Hope you enjoyed this update. I look forward with providing you with more soon. Bowmen is available on Steam probably at the end of this year. There's a page for it if you'd like to participate in the closed beta and get a free skin. Go ahead and check it out and add it to your wish list and sign up on our website. All right, thank you.